Hey guys, just a quick note before we jump into this recording of Office Hours. Office Hours are brought to you by Ride IQ. Every week, Ride IQ members are invited to join us for a conversation with a Ride IQ coach or guest expert about an important equestrian topic. That's Office Hours, and getting weekly direct access to equestrian professionals at the top of their field through Office Hours is a perk of the Ride IQ membership, but at its core, Ride IQ is a mobile app with hundreds of on-demand, listen while you ride audio lessons, top-by-top eventing, jumper, and dressage coaches. In other words, with Ride IQ, you can take a lesson from an incredible coach during any ride you'd like. Whether you're looking to add structure to your rides or try new exercises or build confidence, Ride IQ can help. Membership is only $29.99 per month, and every membership automatically includes a 2-week unlimited access free trial. Try it for yourself today by downloading the Ride IQ mobile app on iPhone or Android. Welcome to Ride IQ. This recording of Office Hours is episode 65 from Wednesday, November 16th. The topic this week was behind the scenes of equestrian media with Sally Spickard, the managing editor of Eventing Nation. During this episode, Sally talks about unique challenges of covering equestrian sports, where she finds inspiration as a journalist, how she broke into the industry, and much more. We hope you enjoy this week's Office Hours. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours. We're coming to you on a Wednesday this week. If you're here, you know that. If you're listening, now you know. It's Wednesday, not Tuesday. We are so excited for today's chat because we're chatting with someone who has become a friend, but also someone who, we're chatting with Sally Spickard, the managing editor of Eventing Nation. And Sally is someone who is like, from the beginning of Ride IQ, been so kind to Kinsey and I. Like, we have pinched ourselves over and over and been like, how did we get so lucky that like Sally's in our corner and just goes, Sally, you go so out of your way for us. And like the first time we got a mention in Eventing Nation, Kinsey and I like lost it. Like that was like, we felt like we had made it. If we do nothing else, that was like made us feel legitimate. And you have found ways to like help get the word out about Ride IQ and just make our experience being part of this community amazing. So thank you for that. And also thank you for taking an hour out of what I know is a very, very busy schedule to chat with us tonight. We're going to go behind the scenes into equestrian media with Sally, and we'll definitely get taken off on some tangents. Anyone who's here live, definitely feel free to send in your questions or just say hello to Sally or me and Kinsey or all of us. But yeah, that's the general umbrella topic, and we'll kind of see where it takes us. But Sally, hello. Thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you for being here. And also, I thought it was Thursday for all of today, so I'm like ahead of the curve, I guess. So at some point I will realize it's Wednesday.
That makes me so happy. So one thing, Kinsey and I have done this, like I was just telling her, I think like 65 times or something. We've had 65 office hours. And every time I like try to do a bio intro for everyone, and every time I get it a little wrong. So I'm going to start trying to open the door for people to tell us their own story rather than me monopolizing that and not doing the best job at it. So will you tell us about your path to Eventing Nation? And I mean, don't feel like you need to be concise because I think people want to get to know you as well. So kind of like you started riding and maybe knew you were going to be in equestrian sports or not, but just kind of tell us about the path to get to where you are today.
Sure. Well, it's really not that great of a story, to be honest. For Eventing Nation specifically, I always wanted to write. I've always been a writer. Like when I was, 12, and I had my like big, huge desktop computer. I wrote these like Nancy Drew animal pet detective novel. Like I should put like huge quotation marks there because it's not like a real thing. But I wish I had the floppy disks of them somewhere because I want to go back and see how terrible they were. But then I used to keep this like notebook where I would write, like I was really into baseball and I was really into horse racing. So those were like my two things growing up. And so I used to just like latch on to all the like sideline reporting that was happening. I used to read like all these sports journalism columns, and so I used to like write like analysis again, quotation marks, like very loose term, in my notebook about like my favorite riders or racehorses or whatever. So I guess I always wanted to do something like this. I didn't really like, eventing was always what I gravitated toward, but before we had the internet, really, I mean, there wasn't much to be found on TV or anything like that. So racing was kind of where I went. Eventing kind of got on my radar because of Eventing Nation. Like, I already knew about it, but I didn't know the big riders. I didn't know the most of the events besides Kentucky. You know, and I stumbled upon Eventing Nation. I remember I was working at Enterprise, the rental company, but I was working on their like fleet leasing side, and I was just on my computer reading Eventing Nation. I just stumbled upon this website, and I was like, oh my god, now I can follow like all the big names. I can know who everybody is. I'm going to study so hard. I'm going to know this sport so well. And then a few years later, they started doing their annual blogging contest, where they just ask people to submit essays, and they give you writing prompts. And so I submitted one year. I didn't make it to the finals. I came back the next year, and made it to the finals. I didn't win, but they basically just told me by the time I had submitted my last entry, like, hey, we would like to work with you. So I did. And then a few months later, John Thier, who founded Eventing Nation, called and said, hey, we really need somebody to go to AECs in Texas in like a week. Are you up for that? And I was like, sure. Yeah, like I'm all for that. So like wildly awkward time at my first event, not knowing what the heck I was doing. And that was kind of it. Like I ended up moving cities, and I didn't transfer with Enterprise because I was kind of getting into this Eventing Nation thing. And I just kind of said, I'm just going to give this 6 months, see if I can grow my role here. And if I don't, then I'll just go back to getting an office job. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So now it's been 10 years. This is actually going to be in 2023, will be my 10th actual year. So that's kind of crazy actually saying that out loud.
Okay, happy almost 10 years. We need to
yeah,
have a
I know. It's like,
that.
I just realized that.
That's amazing.
So
well, I'm sure
10.
there will be a party. We would like to be there.
There should be. We should probably make that happen in some respect.
Yeah, it's on the record, and Kinsey and I will help plan it too if you need extra planners.
Absolutely.
So that was 10 years ago. What was your initial title? Just contributing writer, and then how many people were on the team then versus now? How has it kind of evolved over 10 years?
It hasn't grown that much. Our team has actually stayed really small and very much the same actually for a lot of that time, which is good and bad. I mean, you always want to have new voices and new people. And honestly, we were so small for so long that we just make it work. I think we're used to running lean at this point. Like, you guys know how it is, you know? And so the team had Jenny Autry, Leslie Wiley, John Thier was still writing back then. Like, I don't know, any OG Eventing Nation fans that are watching this, like, you guys remember John Thier's writing. Again, writing. I could say that because he won't be watching this. But so it's evolved in the sense that, like, I think John realized after a couple years that, hey, this is like a viable project. Nobody else is talking about this sport in this way. He started to get the attention of some investors, and the rest was history once he started to then monetize it and put advertisements on it. So then he was able to hire, and Jenny Autry deserves a lot of credit for getting the website to be more of a respected news publication than a blog. And we have maintained both of those sides of Eventing Nation. But Jenny needs to be credited a lot for the hard work that she put in to really legitimize us as a news source. And that's what we've been able to stand on since then. But the team hasn't changed too much. I mean, we've grown and evolved for sure, but we still run with only about 10 people on the team, and only about half of those do regular contributing work or travel to events.
It's so impressive. And also, I'm always impressed talking to people who are great writers, because like, you're such an articulate speaker. You speak clean, and I'm floored every day when I see, like, especially the blurbs that lead into content that you write, and I'm like, how does she write with such like wit every single day? She just does it. And I know you are very practiced, but it is it's just such an it's a very incredible skill. Okay, I have two more kind of like setting the table questions, and then I will hand it over because we got a lot of questions from members ahead of time wanting to know more about your career and about.
Well, I'm excited that people actually submitted questions. I was like, oh, I don't know what people are going to ask, but we'll see.
Totally. Well, yes, we will see. So one question is, what's your personal riding experience?
So I didn't start riding until I was about 13. My adoptive mother growing up really was like terrified of anything that could potentially hurt me. So I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to do anything, much of anything until that point. And so I started riding when I was 13. I was a total chicken. Like I had no guts. I like fell off 3 times in several lessons and like just thought I was. It's not that I thought I was better than I was, but it's like I thought that I had more confidence than I did. So I was really just timid because I rode horses that like they were too much. Like I didn't ride the right horses. And so I rode off and on all through high school. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad was newly divorced and he did everything he could. I rode at an excellent barn in St. Louis, Missouri. Had some really, really excellent training. Like I cannot thank him enough for the foundation that I got, but I never got to really compete or show or do much of that. I was at a really big competition barn, so I really felt like kind of the oddball, but I made so many friends that I still have to this day. And then I rode in college. I rode for the University of Georgia's IHSA team the first year that it started back in like 2004. And that was fine. I really enjoyed that. But again, just didn't really have the money to stick with it. So between that and now, I took several breaks, mostly self-sabotaged financial breaks of just making poor decisions, and eventually ended up with an off-track thoroughbred named Rico, who I produced all the way up through training level. We did 1 training level, and we're schooling preliminary before I was just in a pretty bad spot in my life and just couldn't really afford to carry on anymore. So I found him a great home, and just kind of put the riding on hold for a little bit. So I was a working student for Holly Bennett for a year, and I learned a lot. I've never ridden better. And I look forward to getting back to it, but I have told myself that I will never go back to riding in the same sense until I can do it without the need to work and trade things off. I think we can all agree that this sport takes a lot out of us. And I got to the point where I was making really bad decisions just to keep doing it. And I said, I'm not willing to put myself in that position anymore. And it sucks. Like, I don't like to not ride. But I also don't like, I'm not the type of person that can just ride like once a week or like have a lesson every now and then. Like I need to be like doing something. So I'd rather not do it than do it in that sense, if that makes sense. So I do miss it, but like this work honestly keeps me so close to it. I have plenty of offers of friends' horses if I ever want to ride or anything like that. So I don't feel like I'm missing out. And I honestly feel like I'm making the best decision for me because I don't want to have to sell another horse. Like whatever I have next, I want to have, no matter what that means. So until that happens, until I'm ready to do that, I think I'm set. But so I have ridden throughout my life, long story short. But it's just not ever been the biggest priority because I just haven't had the money,
Totally. And riding is such, it's a different type of endeavor for somebody to like have their heart in because of that financial responsibility that comes with it. Like, it's not like you can be in your happy place when you're on a run or even like ice skating or cycling or these other hobbies that people have that bring them back to center and fill their cup up. It's like, okay, unfortunately and fortunately, all of ours, like one of the primary ones at least, is horseback riding. And it's not buying a bike. It's like,
no.
But I think that what you said, I think that story you just told is really like, I would imagine that it's really freeing for some people listening. And personally for me, it's freeing because Kinsey and I both aren't riding and we haven't ridden for 10 years. And like, I joke about it when people ask, like, we are working more than we would be able to like have time to be with a horse. And I know you would have that issue too, but like the biggest thing is it's just not realistic financially. And that is okay, and it'll be in our future, but it makes me a lot more sad than I admit. Like, I know that that's like, you know, and I think that anybody who isn't around horses and would prefer to be, and the hurdle is the financial hurdle or the location hurdle or whatever it is, it's just a bit of a waiting game. But we're all fortunate because, like you, we've had people offer up their horses, and it really does. It's a nice placeholder. It does.
It is
a nice trick. Kinsey and I did a photo shoot for Ride IQ 2 weeks ago, and
you guys rode, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes. It was, I mean, shout out to everyone who was there. Heather let me ride her horse. Megan let me ride her horse. Riley let Kinsey ride her horse. Riley's horse is a 3-star horse or 4-star horse.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so cool.
It was really cool. And like, it was also very special to have a photographer there because she like captured how much that just like lifted our spirits. Like, we're already so happy to be around Ride IQ people and even together physically, like Kinsey and I being together, but like that was next level. So anyways, I just went off on a personal tangent. Okay.
No, but I loved it. But you could see how happy it made you. And it's like, it's that much more special now when we get to, since we don't get to do it all the time.
I'm hopeful for all of us that our lives will take us down a path that have more horses, but I mean, it's great. We're also lucky. I know a lot of people who ride horses would prefer to be working in the equestrian world, and we get that benefit right now, which is very special.
There is so much inspiration from, I mean, you guys, I'm sure, meet so many people when you go to events, and I do as well. And I meet so many people that have very similar stories, and even people that are going upper level. I don't really have upper level aspirations anymore, but it's really cool to see people that are older than me, but I don't mean it in a sense of like old. It's just they are older than me, and they followed a similar path, and they said I couldn't afford it either, and I went back to it when I was, 40 or 50 or whatever. And so it's the nice thing about this sport is you're never too old to do it. So there's always time.
Totally. I don't have upper level aspirations either. I'm like, I would be scared now. I think like falling off didn't used to be a big deal at all. Now I'm like, oh my God, that would be bad.
It hurts more now. It's
yeah.
And like you step away from it and you're like, oh my God, everything looks so big now.
Oh, totally.
God.
Yeah. We can watch other people do that part of it.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
For sure.
Okay. My last question until I hand it over to Kinsey is just let us know like where you are right now. And is there a day in the life of Sally Spickard, or is every day different?
Well, there is a day in the life, I would say, especially when I'm home. So I am in California. My boyfriend Kyle and I just moved from San Diego up to Palo Alto because he's finishing his school at Stanford. So we are living here on the edge of campus and kind of just getting settled. We literally just moved just before World Championships this September. So it's been kind of a whirlwind of a fall. Let's see, day in the life. I generally try to work pretty balanced hours. I have to work on Eastern time. So that means I've become a morning person just because of necessity. So I usually get up pretty early and just check in. I have a lot of editorial support now with Tilly Barrett. So she's taken a lot of the day-to-day operations of the website during the week. So I can not have to be up at 5 o'clock every day to get ready for the day. So that's wonderful. So I'll usually get up. I try to do yoga or something first thing in the morning just to get myself in a good headspace, because I have a really terrible habit, as I'm sure you might also, of checking my email and my messages first thing in the morning and then getting myself completely anxiety ridden. And like, it's like I wake up and the first thing I think about is all the things I have to do today and like how many emails or what are people waiting for. And I literally have to just like sit there and tell myself, like, Sally, what you do is not that big of a deal. Like, not to trivialize it, but it's like, you're not like, nothing that is waiting in your inbox is that important that at 5:30 in the morning, you have to do something about it. So I started doing something in the mornings to like create a distance from that and work, because I was just getting myself so rattled at like 5 in the morning. It's like too early for this. So I generally will just work kind of, not 8 or 9 ish until mid-afternoon, and then I'll try to take a break and then I'll go back to it. I manage all of our sponsors. So our business development and our growth and our sponsors, which for a normal company should technically be 3 jobs, but we're a small company, so it's 1. So I do a lot of the business development management. So that takes up most of my days. I'm on a lot of meetings and calls and interviews. I still try to write as much as I can because that's obviously what I love to do. And I do also do a little bit of part-time work on the side. Also, I have a couple of writers who I help with their social media. Well, one writer, and I have a couple other small social media marketing type clients just to kind of help supplement because the Eventi Nation salary is it's not a millionaire maker, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, Sally, everything, like, I feel like your approach to life, you need to write a book because like just the way that you've taken like things like adversity kind of, or just like recognize, okay, I get stressed in the morning if I do this, here's a solution for it, and let me just do that. Like it seems like you have a really good, you're very self-aware, and it is incredibly refreshing. And I can relate to everything you're saying. So it makes me feel
that. Yeah, well, it's I'm by no means have every day is not good by any means. And so I try to just do the things that I enjoy the most. And I work with my dog on my desk, so that keeps me zen during the day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are there any coworkers that you want to show us?
Well, my screen is hanging down. I have to unblur my screen again. Let's see if I can do this without disrupting a whole thing. So, because you guys just like, everybody knows Cooper. So he gonna say hello?
He's so cute. Oh my God.
Hi.
Anyone who's only listening is really missing out because this is the sweetest thing you've ever seen.
So he doesn't have it right now, but it's cold here right now. Like, he's mad because I'm disturbing him. He has a heating pad that I have to put in his bed in the mornings because it's so cold. So he's living the life, that's for sure. He's a hard worker.
Oh my God, I love him so much.
He's ridiculous.
That brings me joy.
It does bring me joy too.
So, Sally, while you're focused on like business development and that side of Eventi Nation right now, your original introduction into the business was writing articles. Would you say that's like your passion side of it, or like, are you at your core like a writer? Is that would you describe yourself like that?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, my larger goal in life is to write novels. That would be my eventual goal. But I actually really enjoy I do actually really enjoy the business development more than I thought I would. I've always enjoyed business in general. Like, I read a lot of business, like nonfiction. I don't, it's hard to explain, but like, I just have somewhat of an interest in it. So it's been cool to put that knowledge that I've picked up in passing into practice with this business, because I kind of had the opportunity to take over operations. And I don't have a business degree. I don't have a whole lot of background running a business. So this has been a nice, a really interesting project to try to learn how to effectively run a business and to grow my network. So I would say the writing for sure is what I enjoy the most, but I also really enjoy the relationship building and the business side of things too.
Yeah, you're so good at it. So you're natural.
Sometimes. I appreciate it. You guys are making me feel nice.
Did you get a degree in journalism, or has writing always just been a passion, like a hobby passion?
Writing's always kind of been a passion. Honestly, I didn't finish school. I again was in a pretty terrible place in my life during college, and I think if I had a chance to go back and do it again, I would be able to be successful. But I've been able to find my path without having to finish, and I think I've learned not what I need to in the sense that I know everything, but I think I've learned what I need to get by and be good at what I do just through life experience. but journalism was where I was headed. So that's definitely the background of my educational career, but I can't say that I've got the full finished product there. But I think, that's again to each their own path, right?
Totally. Yeah. That's one thing that, I mean, I think a lot of people who are especially interested in what we're talking about tonight might either be young professionals or people thinking about a career transition. And I mean, to each their own path is like, once you embrace that, you can land somewhere that is right for you and that you'll thrive. Yeah. Like, I fought that really hard for, I thought there was a right path, and like, it was hard and I felt like I wasn't good at things. And then you land in somewhere that is right for you.
Yeah.
And it feels so different.
It does. Well, and I mean, think of all the pressures that we experience as women, as people of a certain age. There's an expectation that we want certain things, and that's not necessarily what everybody wants. And I think, I've become a huge proponent of just I don't know how to say it exactly, but of just finding what makes you tick, and that may not be what makes the most money. And I understand it's an impractical thing to say, but I think you can find a lot of success without following what you think you should be doing, or what you've been taught that you should do your whole life.
Yes, totally. And I think when you are in a position that is like congruent with what makes you tick, there's more money to be made than you realize, because if you're stellar at it and it's what lights you up, those opportunities show up. And like, not to convince somebody to like quit a financially
we're going to have all these like people like, I just quit my job. Now what do I do?
I know.
Sure, do it. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a bummer when people are miserable in their work. So, but that happens to all of us.
Because in this country, we're very married to work and the value that work gives us. And again, financial stability is important. I'm not trying to say like, because I've never had money. I've never had a lot of money. I've always lived very hand to mouth, and I've also not managed my money properly. So that's the other part of the skill set. If you don't have a lot of money, but you manage it well, you're better off than somebody who doesn't manage it, but has more money. So I don't remember where I was going with this, but the whole point is that like we're so conditioned, I think, in this country in particular, to like work, and like that's the only thing that you do. And it's like, even sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, oh my God, all I talk about is my freaking job. Like, let's talk about something else, And I think we just we care a lot about our job, so it makes it feel like it's not a bad thing. But I don't know. The whole point is just balance and finding what makes you happy. That's not necessarily only your job.
Totally. Man, Kinsey and I needed everything that you're saying today. Like, I'm going to start doing yoga in the mornings. I'm also reading Atomic Habits right now because...
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So you've told me about yoga, which I already was like, it was in my head that like, I think this would really help, because it's not as like physically draining in terms of like, I won't be exhausted the rest of the day. But I also need to hear like the work part of it has been, since we started Ride IQ, a constant struggle, because it's like, we're doing what we love, but also a year has gone by of like consistent 14, 16-hour days, and like, what are weekends? And it's like, okay, that's
off.
A year and a half. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So it's, you got to but also there's time to grind. There's time that you aren't grinding. I don't know. But
there's also like time to realize what you've accomplished, which I'm sure you do, but I know when you're in it, it's hard to think. But you guys have got that pitch competition. I don't know that an equestrian company's ever even been in one of those, let alone won one. I mean, I hope you guys are so proud of that, because that is, to see the crossover of the business acumen and the equestrian world is honestly something you don't see very often. And I don't mean that to offend anybody, but it's just not everybody runs a business with the skill set that you guys have. So you know, in the midst of the grind. I hope that you
Yeah.
remember that you guys have really, you've smashed it.
That's really kind of you. The pitch competition, the best part of it was like riders being excited that an equestrian something got attention. And like we were absolutely beaming because I mean, the one thing that I felt was like, man, I just wish like everyone who's helped us could like literally be here and like experience people celebrating something in the equestrian world, which you are definitely on the top of that list, you know, like it's just very cool to think about all the people who helped us have that little success and moment in the spotlight. But I remember, I'm like, what question was I going to ask?
I know, tangent.
I remember now though. Okay. So writing is one of your passions and like was your introduction to Eventing Nation initially, even though you've taken on a lot of roles in addition to that over your 10 years there. But for people who are interested in journalism or even specifically equestrian journalism, it'd be interesting to hear from you when writing is your job. Where do you find inspiration? What happens with writer's block? Like, how do you keep yourself putting out content? And are you able to enjoy the process when there's like a lot of demands on that? What's your advice around that?
Okay, so I'm going to say something that I hope doesn't offend too many people, and I hope is okay, but it's legal here. So I'm a huge proponent of cannabis. Like, I don't want to say that in a way of like I'm a stoner, because that's not the point. And I hope that this is okay to talk about, and I won't spend too much time on it. But I do think that I don't drink. This is a huge tangent, but I'm just saying that like it has helped me be, as you say, more self-aware, and really lends itself well to creativity, particularly if you are intentional about what you're consuming and how you're consuming it. So, you know, I'm not by any means pushing a lifestyle on people, but I do say we are in 2022 and it is becoming a more popular topic to talk about. And I'm very open about it because I think that a lot of people have this preconception that people who smoke weed are burnouts or they're lazy or they're whatever negative. And sure, there are people that do that, you know, and that's their choice, but it has helped my anxiety. It has helped my depression. It has helped my productivity, my focus. So, you know, I can't say enough good things about that. That being said, I don't use it in a way of like, I can't do anything creative without it. It just helps, you know? So that part aside, I draw a lot of inspiration. Honestly, I just pay attention like to my Instagram feed, to my Facebook feed. I get so many story leads just from seeing what people are posting about. There's a girl in Kentucky, Megan Moore, who is I'm sorry, she's not in Kentucky anymore. I think she moved a little bit farther north, but she had a huge operation with a lot of horses in Kentucky for a long time. She had this former advanced horse that didn't go 5-star or anything, but she was on the developing rider team a couple times. And it was this really unnoteworthy off-track thoroughbred here. Video post of him doing like a dressage, helping some student of hers get her dressage medal or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's a great story. So now we're going to run a story on that, you know, next week or something like that. And I think it's just really just observing the stories that are happening around you. I think I always get inspiration just talking to people and listening to live streams. You know, there's especially the FBI live streams where commentators like John Kyle are behind the mic. I mean, God, you could listen to that man talk about horses. It doesn't matter what discipline. He knows everything about everybody. He knows a backstory. He knows a back fact. So if you listen to any of the live streams, you'll learn something. And I've found a lot of people that I'm like, hey, let's go interview that guy because John said something really cool about his horse on the live stream. Just observation. I think that's the making of any storyteller. That you'll find that they just observe the world and see things, and sometimes you find a story there. So there's not really a magic secret. It's just observation would be my thing.
I'm gonna jump ahead of Kinsey and ask the second question. That's super interesting. Do you have time for reading these days? And whether you do or don't, are there any books, fiction or nonfiction? I ask this that you recommend, and I ask this because our members are big readers, and they're always like, what's so-and-so's favorite book, or what was that book list again? So I want to get your recommendations too.
I do read a lot. I'm a huge fan of so I read some biographies. I don't read as many as I'd like to. I'm reading Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential novel right now, or memoir right now. That's one of the things I'm reading. But I really like characters, like just people in general. So I think that's why I like biographies. But I've read a couple books by this Korean writer named Min Jin Lee, and she wrote just like a 3-generation epic story of these 3 Korean family members and their journey through Japanese colonialism. And it's a pretty heavy book, but I really like those like in-depth character studies because I love to see character development. So I think maybe that helps segue into what I do, because I think I like to tell stories about people. So maybe there's just some sort of gravitational pull there. See, I'm reading this book right now called The Immortalist. It's by a girl named Chloe Benjamin. And it's about these 4 siblings or 5 siblings who go to see a fortune teller when they're younger, and she is able to tell them the exact date that they'll die. And so it just like follows them through life as they grapple with that knowledge. It's just like another kind of family epic story. So those are kind of the books that I gravitate towards. I would say just like good characters.
That last one you mentioned, I feel like Kinsey's gonna download it on.
Oh, it's good. It's
Kindle,
good.
like,
Yeah,
I've
read it pretty fast. I'm almost done with it. I've just kind of been like kind of slowly getting through the last bit, but it's a good read. I would recommend it.
Okay, Kins, I'll let you finally get a question in.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Okay, so Sally, this is a good kind of a good segue into the next question we got, which is who comes up with the topics that you guys are writing about, and is it mostly you and you're delegating them? Do your writers come up with the topics and then pitch them? Like that's you kind of see in movies, like people will sit in a room and like pitch different topics, and someone will say yes or no.
I know, I've always wanted to sit in one of those rooms. No, I don't know. Not at Eventing Nation, it's not. It's basically like I can't tell you how informal we are, you guys, because like I'm very much a believer that like nobody works for us full time. Like Tilly would be the closest person that works full time for us, and everybody. I'm very proud of the fact that like we have a voice, but everybody that writes for us kind of has their own voice and their own styles and their own preference of what they like to write about. Like Tilly's bread and butter is competition coverage and analysis. Like she is brilliant at it, and so that's what she writes. And I have a couple other people that like to interview people, or they like to talk to grooms. So it's really like I will assign some stories out, especially as we've hired a few more writers. But either I will end up just finding stories myself, or other people will, sometimes we'll toss around a topic and I'll say, yeah, go for it. But everybody pretty much knows if they want to write something, they write it. And I like that about us because it just invites more creativity, in my opinion. I think there's always an argument for greater organization, but I think you can still balance those two things.
That's really interesting. And it's exciting for people who are contributing to Eventing Nation too, to have that freedom,
yeah.
If someone assigns a topic, I would imagine that sometimes it's like, man, either this feels like out of my wheelhouse or I don't feel like writing about that right now.
Exactly. And you should like we don't have staff. Like I have one girl who writes some of our sponsored content, and that's kind of her wheelhouse, but I'm assigning her stories that are sponsored. It's not like she's writing about a product all the time. So, it's, I think it's everybody has what they enjoy doing. And that's one of the first things I ask when I have a writer that's coming on board is, what do you like to, like, what do you want to write about? Because that's what you're going to write the best, not what I tell you to write.
Totally. So since so many people are like, when you talk about like equestrian media, especially like in the eventing world, Eventing Nation is going to be like top of mind because so many people hold Eventing Nation in that spot. Are you guys like, is there a big demand for people who are wanting to break into the industry, who are reaching out? I mean, like young people, or do you feel like, I don't know, is that slowing down? Is it speeding up? Is it the same? Is it high? Is it low? Just kind of what is that demand like? I'll stop my question there because otherwise I'm sneaking an extra one in.
I wish the pool was bigger, but I say that knowing that maybe I'm not, I don't know everything, because I there's a huge lack of diversity in equestrian media, and it's very bothersome because I feel partially responsible for that in the sense that I have the ability to hire people, and I don't want to say I can't find them because I know that's not true. It's just I haven't found the right way. And I should preface this by saying it's not like I've put a job posting out there. That's not really our style anyway. Like we really haven't ever done that before. We've kind of always hired within network, which I think I just answered my own question. I think that's the problem is that you're relying on the same network of people. And that's the thing where with equestrian media, it's a very small group, and it's cool because at every 5-star I see the same people and they're all my friends and it's great. But it's a little bit like the sport. It's a little bit hard to get into. And there's, I would love to find a way to have a part in growing the talent pool that I know is out there. And maybe people watching this can help me with that because I think I have not done the best job at kind of putting my money where my mouth is in terms of diversity and hiring. And that's something that I feel terribly about. And but it's also something that it's like, man, I just need to like find a solution to this and prioritize it. And so I think, I would love to have more people that reach out to me. I do get a lot of inquiries throughout the year of people who are interested in freelancing. And it's always a tough question because it's like, man, like you really have to have a certain voice for Eventing Nation. Like it's not your typical job. And I think that's where I struggle is it's like, we've run by the seat of our pants for so long that now that I'm trying to like get things to be a little bit more formalized, it's like, oh, how do I do that? Like we've never done this before. So yeah, it's a really long answer to your question, but I do think, if there's people out there that are interested in this type of work, we're not the biggest company. We're not the richest company. We don't have the biggest payroll, but I mean, we're happy to give people a chance. And if we can help bring more people from different backgrounds into this industry, then I think it's only going to help us in the long run.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I think one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, because you're not bringing people on full time, you could also do this like alongside something else, and like,
yeah.
And it would be a really great way to like get experience and exposure, and not have to worry about it being your full time salary.
For sure.
So one thing we would love to get your perspective on, as like a total expert in this space, is the perspective of or perception of equestrian sports. It has had issues over the years, like reasonably so, and media obviously plays a part in deciding what that perception is. How has EN approached that, and like or EN as a whole, or how do you think about that, and how can what's the path forward to, like, I don't know, making those things like work better together?
Yeah, it's something I feel strongly about because I think there's a few things to say about that. Let's see, where do I start? I think the reality is that our sport is unique in that it really plays to the partnership of horse and rider and the care of horse and rider and making the right decisions. The unfortunate part, I always see people lamenting the fact that our sport is not shown more often on mainstream ESPN or other NBC. And part of me wonders if that's not a bad thing because we have horses hitting the ground at some of these shows. And it doesn't matter if you are a horse person or not, especially if you are not a horse person. If I saw that and I was not a horse person and I saw that on live TV, I mean, think of when that mare went down at the Kentucky Derby a few years ago. She went down after the finish line and they had a shot of her just like laying on the track because she couldn't get up. And it was, it's terrible for us to watch as horse people, but we're I don't want to say we're used to it, but we've seen it more. So like we understand that it's a part of the sport. People don't get that. And there was a horse at the Tokyo Olympics that did some catastrophic damage to both of its front legs after one of the fences. And there was the whole scaffolding full of what are called pool photographers, which are photographers that are sent over to cover other sports, even if that's not their specific specialty. They're just sent to take pictures and to have for the archives for the Olympic Channel. And as soon as that horse pulled up, the press officer, we were standing in the mix zone, and the press officer took off sprinting to go talk to the pool photographers to say, you guys can't, you guys can't take photos of this. You guys can't put these on the internet. And it's funny because when that happened, my first thought was, this is the end of eventing in the Olympics, because if this gets out, then there's no way. There's no way. I mean, people, the racetracks that had all the breakdowns a couple of years ago, I mean, people were calling for the end of horse racing. And the opinion of people in that manner is really powerful. So my whole point is that I think, and I know this will sound kind of bad, but I think that our sport was saved in Tokyo by the pentathlon, by the woman who punched the horse in the pentathlon, because that took all of the fury away from us. I went back after the fact because I was like, how did this not get out that there was a horse that was euthanized at the Olympics and nobody in like the real world is talking about this? And I Googled it because I was like, did they just not pick up the story? Like, did they not talk about it? And I Googled it, and there's articles on NBC. There's an article on ESPN. And somehow, I swear to God, that German pentathlon trainer saved our sport. I will die on that hill, because I think if that had gotten out, we would not be looking at Paris. And I just think that that's the razor thin edge that our sport is on. We get a lot of crap whenever we have to report that a horse has died in an event. It's funny to me because I don't usually read comments, but like sometimes I will, and like sometimes there was a bad situation at Blenheim this year where 3 horses unfortunately passed away, and people were really angry at us for sharing that news. And I was like, guys, like, there's a huge debate that we have as a team whenever this happens. It's news, it needs to be shared. But when people Google 3-day eventing, I don't want them to see stories about horses dying. So it's like this huge balancing act that you have to play, where you have a responsibility to report and have accountability for what happened, but then you have to also protect the sport. So it's, I think all of us at Eventing Nation have written too many obituaries for riders and for horses, and that's not anything close to the pain that the people that have lost those people and horses have felt, but like, that's not a fun part of the job. And I just think that as media, it's important to help people understand that perception is real. And the minute that the world at large sees our sport for what they think it is, it's not gonna be good. So that just drives the subject of safety and rider responsibility and making good decisions home, because we all have a part in that. And honestly, that's a huge reason why I was so excited about Ride IQ, because people need to be educated. Not everybody has access to education. Not everybody can afford to take lessons, but they need to be safely taught, because that saves our sport in the long run. If you guys go on Eventing Nation today, Bettina Hoy has a column that she wrote for us that talks a lot about the same thing. And it's excellent, because she shares a lot of the same thing about, like, riding better, being a better horseman or horsewoman doesn't mean you're more competitive. It means you're helping save our sport. So that's my soapbox. I don't know if I answered the question, but perception is real. And I think we all have a responsibility to create a safer sport and not just have to hide what happens and accept it as a part of what happens.
Wow. That
was a rant. I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't a rant at all. It's so interesting to hear from you on that issue, because I don't envy your position in that case. Like, it's such a balancing act, and man, that we could go on for an hour.
You could go on. Yeah, you could. And again, it's not about us. It's not about like, oh, we don't like to have to do it like it. But I don't care about that. It's the fact that, like, should we even be doing it? I don't know. But I don't, I ask myself that question every time we have a horse die, which, again, that sentence in itself, every time we have a horse die, come on. Like, I love the sport so much, and I love it. But I wrote this a while back after Blenheim, and I said, every time we have a horse that passes away, I love it a little bit less. And I don't mean it in a sense of like, I don't want to work to make it better. It just means like, I don't like that part, guys. Like, I just don't. And I don't think anybody should just accept that. And maybe I haven't done a good enough job as somebody with a platform to advocate for that. And maybe that's on me. And I think there's always something that we can do better, but I just feel strongly that our sport is on thin ice and all of us can help do something about it.
No, it's really valid. And like that call to action alone, like it will be one of two things. The sport will get safer, or people will call for the end of the sport, and it won't be unjustified. Like if the sentence keeps being normal, that like horses are dying, that shouldn't be normal. And as horse people, we shouldn't allow it to be normal. I don't know. It's like these tragedies happen and we love the sport and our instinct is to grieve and then push it down. And then we're reminded again, like when we were at Kentucky last year and that horse had an issue in the water jump, and it sounded the speed with which rumors started about that horse.
Oh my gosh. It was terrible.
But I was like sure that horse needed to be put down. And I was like, what are we doing? Like this, and that thought comes up every time. And it is really interesting. So I think that the whole sport has to come together to realize that it's a this or that situation, or maybe people do realize it. And that's, the safety precautions that are being put in place or safety measures or like our evolution toward addressing it. But it's very valid for sure. And grappling with it from a media perspective right now, wanting the sport to survive and also wanting the horses to survive is, that's a wild thing to.
Yeah, I think it's just more nuanced than some people may give it credit for. And listen, I'm not trying to say that I get it right every time. I've done so many things that I should have done differently, from the Eventing Nation standpoint. But yeah, it's, I guess the point is it's just a hard job. It's a hard decision. And it's not all just like running around and throwing a chinchilla around. Like there's a little bit more to it. And some days it's, you really question like, oh my God, are we doing the right thing? I don't know. So, right. But we all love the sport. Like there's no question that we all love the sport. We wouldn't be doing this. So it's just, what do we do with that?
Totally. Well, I know you've put hours and hours and days into thinking about it. I haven't put as long into thinking about it, but my knee-jerk reaction is that the horses that die deserve to be in the news because they died, like maybe not in the New York Times, but like brushing that under the rug too seems for the benefit of the sport.
Right. That doesn't seem like the right solution either, So I don't know what it is. And I know people have opinions on that, and I'd love to hear them because I think it's important to know what the collective, and this is another tangent, but I think we could do a better job of a sport at listening to the general masses of people that are membership. Like, I know the USCA does what they can with like soliciting member opinions and feedback, but it's like, where are like the roundtable discussions and like I guess maybe I should do them. I don't know. But like, I just think there's a way to like harness the community a little bit more too. And I think there's a disconnect between the upper levels and the amateur lower levels. And there's a lot of things. And I don't want to paint a negative picture because I think there's a lot to love about where our sport is going, but it's just things to think about,
Well, that's a good reminder too. Like if anybody watching or listening to this later does want to have this conversation, like we welcome it in the private Ride IQ group. What I would say about it is it's a very sensitive subject, and the way that we can solicit honest, thoughtful conversation is with kindness. So all of our jobs is to respect people's opinions. And that's one thing that I've never seen in the Ride IQ community is not respecting people's opinions. I've never seen in the Ride IQ community people be rude or inconsiderate of other people's feelings, which it's such a safe place, and I want to preserve that forever if I can, but for as long as possible for now, because when I see harsh responses to people in other groups, I mean, sometimes it gets heated, and that makes it feel like less of a safe place for equestrians to try to like, share ideas and opinions, which opinions should be loud. So that is just what I would say. All of our responsibility is to be like as kind and empathetic as possible with each other, because hopefully we have a shared goal of, safe horses, safe riders, the longevity of the sport, all of the good things.
I totally agree. So
one thing that just came to mind to lighten this up a little bit is I grew up with chinchillas. So
did you really?
Yes.
I have no personal experience with live chinchillas. So
oh my God, Sally, they are the cutest little nuggets. My first one was named Mr. Valentine.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, real gem. And they're little, I mean, do you know that they bathe in dust?
I did know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, any parents out there thinking about getting a chinchilla, think twice. But from my perspective as the kid who just got to like play with him all the time, my second one was named Shiloh. It was a real dream. They couldn't be more adorable.
Aren't they like pretty cuddly too once you get to know them a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And mine had like a massive 3-level cage that with like toys and stuff that he seemed pretty content in, but somehow it was, believe it or not, this was a coincidence. One of my childhood friends also had a chinchilla, and her chinchilla just roamed the house and was like trained like a cat is trained to go to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
I think that training was a little like not quite as tight as it could have been.
I feel like that's putting it nicely.
Yeah. Okay, Kinsey, I'm going to hand it over to you to get maybe a final question in, because I can't believe it's the end of the hour.
I can't believe it's an hour. God.
So much this has just been the nicest chat. And before we get to that last question, I just appreciate
Kinsey's going to be like, I just want to ask this question.
I know. I just want to also, and I could save it for the end, but I just appreciate how forthcoming and honest and transparent you are, because it's so refreshing, and it helps all of us think about like our roles and our lives. I have stuff to think about, and I also feel like I'm not alone in a lot of different ways after talking to you. Yeah. So thank you for being so open in that way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I did everything Jessa just said. And I like how she said I had chinchillas. I was there too.
You had guinea pigs.
I know, but I don't know. Okay, so Sally, we gotta do another office hours, because there's so much more that we want to learn from you. But to wrap
you guys should have Tilly on too, because she's got the funny stories. So you guys, if you want to like expand the media view here, then you guys need to have Tilly on, because she's like the entertainment factor here, just to be clear.
We absolutely want to have her on, and she is so entertaining. It is unbelievable. So that's a great idea. So Sally, what our last question that we like to ask experts that come on for the first time is, what would you say is your favorite part of your job?
One thing I really appreciate about my job that I've come to appreciate more is the rapport that I have been able to develop with a lot of the writers that I talk to. Those relationships are super important in any business. And I have gotten a lot of really nice compliments from the writers that I've interviewed over the years, just for being respectful of their words. For aspiring writers or media people out there, one of the best things you can do for your subjects that you're talking to is to not twist their words around. I can't tell you how much that happens, and it's crazy to me, because it's like, I don't know, I won't go there, but I get a lot of writers that are actually quite cautious to talk to me because they've been misquoted, or they've been made to look a certain way, or they sound a certain way. And you have to realize, like, when somebody tells you something, you can't just quote it verbatim, because you have to put context into it. And even a completely innocuous statement can come across really bad in text form when you're writing it. So I think one of my favorite part of the jobs is just the education that I've had of just the cultivating respect with the writers, and also understanding that, like, this is their livelihood. And, you know, I appreciate the time that they give us in the mix zone. And I try to ask as random and interesting of questions as I can, just to make it more interesting for them. And I think as a collective media whole, we do a really good job of building those relationships with the riders. And I think that's one of the most fun parts about this job, because I have this like I put up a bunch of pictures that I've taken and a bunch of my press passes on my office wall here, and I put my first or second Kentucky that I went to was 2003, and I've had the program for it this whole time, and I have Bobby Costello, Buck Davidson, Will Faudree maybe, and somebody who I can't read. They all signed it. And I was looking at it when I was hanging these up, and I was like, oh my God, I've like interviewed all of these people now, and I have them all on my phone. And it's just crazy because I would count them all somewhat as friends now too. Like it's just been cool to see that kind of full circle experience come around, and the relationships I've made, I think, are the most valuable thing to me.
Yeah, that has to be amazing, going from like, you know, interviewing people who are celebrities to you for the first time, and now, yeah, they're still celebrities to you, and also hold so many different, you know, positions. That's very special, and that's something that, you know, is special to you.
Yeah.
And special to you, I mean, like unique to you too, because it's a hard, you know, like there's a reason that they don't have relationships with everyone in the same way. And I also like had, when you said quoting people verbatim without context, I think about how I speak, like just in general. And I'm like, oh God, if anybody quoted me at any point, I would be like mortified.
Yeah.
Like,
you have to have a little bit of intuition about that. And it's not about quoting something that they didn't say. It's not about that, but it's like, it's just, you don't have to make them sound like an asshole if they're not actually an asshole.
Totally. Yeah.
That's the point, you know.
Man, that I can imagine that they definitely appreciate that, and also annoying they have to be nervous about it.
Yeah, you know, everybody does their job a little bit differently, I guess.
Totally. Well, Sally, this has been such a pleasure, so refreshing. Just everything and more that we could have wanted from this conversation, but also like,
oh, well, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad it was good.
So interesting. I feel like I was captured by what you were saying the whole time. And like I said, I can't believe it's been an hour. So
I know.
Thank you for everything, like literally everything you've done for us, everything you do for the sport, just doing this. It's all so appreciated. And you are to us what you just described, like Bobby and Will are to you. Like, I feel so lucky that now we can count you as a friend, because before it was like, oh my God, Sally, you know, posted about us or responded to an email. I still feel flattered when you send us a text or respond to an email, which you are always like very punctual and good about, but I'm still flattered by it. So thank you for all.
You guys are way too nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate everything you do. Like I said, you guys are, I remember Kyle called me about Ride IQ, like when it was first kind of like getting off the ground, and he was like kind of telling me about it in his like very long-winded way. And I was just like, this sounds really cool. Like, and then it launched, and you guys did such a great job with it. Like, it's been really cool to watch you guys develop as well. So I'm also happy to have you guys as friends.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight, or if you're listening later, thank you to you as well. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Office Hours. Before you go, I'd love to tell you a little more about Ride IQ. With Ride IQ, you can get guidance from an incredible coach anytime you want. No need to deal with hauling or scheduling or budgeting. Our members always describe it best, and one of our members, Lauren, recently said, Ride IQ has absolutely reinvigorated me to pursue excellence with every ride. The lessons provide much needed direction, purposeful exercises, and reminders to keep me in check while also asking my horse to perform. Lauren rocks, as do all Ride IQ members. I'll quickly explain more about how Ride IQ works. First, you look through the app and choose a lesson based on your horse or a skill you're working on. There are lessons specifically for restarting OTTBs, lessons for nervous horses or horses that are behind the leg, as well as lessons lessons that teach every stage of skills like shoulder in or lengthenings. Then you tack up and press play, and you have a top coach like Doug Payne or Kyle Carter or Lawrence Breiser in your ear guiding you every step of the ride. If you'd like to learn more, visit ride-iq.com or start your 2-week free trial by downloading the Ride IQ app on your iPhone or Android. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful rest of your day.